The clinic started at 2:30 and it goes on to 10 o'clock at night. And what did you do? I made love with black people all day. Damn. Don't get me started today, brothers and sisters. Take off your socks and smell it because we're going in. All right. I'm going to finish on that note because I get too excited sometimes. Brothers and sisters, Lord gosh, we have got the man of the moment today. 300 of you are still on the platform. You are in now for the keynote speaker, all the way from Los Angeles, USA. A brother that's been ripping up the internet left, right, and center, and is a dear beloved of mine now, dear beloved of mine. And I'm going to shut my mouth now as I bring in our king, our master teacher, Reverend Shock, also known as the metaphysical Morpheus. Lick Shock, my king.
What's going on, God? How are you?
Brother, now I see your face, I feel 10 times better.
You guys have been rocking, man. Lady Adele, she brought the heat, man. Y'all are badass up in here. I had to change some of my slides after seeing your presentation. I said, let me just add a little something to this, you know. I was trying to put it out, make it neutral. I'm like, oh, he's going there? Well, we need to come on with the heat and the truth now. What's going on? All right. So, my brother, I want to do a PowerPoint here if I can. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see how this works.
You can share anytime you're ready to share.
All right, there we go. Let's see if you can see it. And can you now? I'm going to make it full screen now.
Full screen,
let me know, brother, if the slides are progressing, because last time they didn't move. So, are you able to see the next? See this slide here?
Yes, but it's it's not on full screen yet, brother. I think once you start playing it, if you press the
okay, because I was on full screen.
That's good, Bobby. You just had it just then. Just then.
Okay, wait a minute. Let me go back. Let me try it again here. Let's see what's going on here. Let's do that, and let's see if you can see the full screen. Are you able to see the next slide, the affirmation of power and prosperity?
No, you had it before, but we can still see all the other screens. We can still.
That is crazy. So I don't know why it's not allowing me.
Now we got it, brother. You just had it just then.
Yeah, it's not staying for some reason. I don't know what's going on with Zoom. That it's not allowing me to do when I go full screen on the thing. So. Well.
Too dangerous, brother. You're too dangerous.
So what we're going to do is what we've been doing. Let me see if I can expand this out here.
Yeah, if you make the side slides smaller and gives yourself more space.
And let's do that. And then let's move this over like so. All right. So we're going to just do it this way like we did before. Hopefully everybody can see. We're going to talk about quantum entanglement and the impact of the MAAFA on intimacy and relationships in the diaspora, because you hit upon something very powerful, Baba Andrew, when you were talking about all of this European perversion. Well, what we're going to do is kind of go into the spiritual history of it, where it came from, how it's entangled within us, and how we began to move ourselves forward, but also how is it manifesting and showing up in our relationships and how we're treating each other today. So I always like to start out with the affirmation of power, prosperity, and protection. And that is, I am one with first frequency. I am one with the first thought idea. I am one with the firstborn people. I am one with the only one. Ashe, and so it is. I dedicate all of my talks to three goddesses that shaped my life, my spiritual mothers, if you will, Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman, who says you are the thinker who thinks the thought that makes the thing, Reverend Dr. Helen Carey, and of course, Nana Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. This is dedicated to, because I'm here in the States, this is dedicated to the true builders of the state capitol here in the US. Now, this presentation is brought to you by, as Brother Andrew mentioned earlier, everybody knows me when I say nothing is wrong with us, something happened to us. Nothing is wrong with Black people, something happened to Black people. So I decided to do I guess an EP, seven series of talks whereby you can go on iTunes or Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. You can just download and stream all of this great information, understand nothing's wrong with you. Here's what happened to you, and understand your trauma. I am the founder of First Frequency of Oneness. We help create spiritual, psychological, and emotional barriers to the hidden signal of racial battle fatigue and racialized domestic terror. We remove the African American from the effects of false racial identities known as third and fourth frequency, which we're going to be talking about. We help the African American and African overcome their trauma bonding, capture bonding, and Stockholm syndrome to whiteness. We had a conversation about that in my last appearance here with you all. We also are culturally specific, meaning that this ministry is exclusively for us, by us, and we don't allow the Amu or the European to be a part of our messaging and our ministry. And we're not in the business of making the Amu feel safe and good about themselves based upon what their impact has been on Black bodies since their arrival out of the caves. We specialize in healing and removing the ancestral, historical, and incarnate trauma that is deeply embedded within Africans and African Americans. We're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about going into our original first frequency, which is what this is based on. It's not science, it's not self-esteem, it's science based. So that being said, for some of you who may not know who I am, I'm known as the Metaphysical Morpheus. I have a master's degree in metaphysical science and philosophy. Currently working on my doctorate. You can go to metaphysicalmorpheus.com and you can download a 3-part fireside chat that I did with Brother B-Man Billy Bird, which is kind of my life story of how I became Metaphysical Morpheus and in this movement that I'm in. I'm the founding minister of First Frequency of Oneness, Science, Manifestation, and Prosperity. SHOCK, by the way, stands for Seeking Higher Omnipotent Conscious or Cosmic Knowledge. And I'm also the founder of the SHOCK Metaphysics Virtual Comedic Wisdom School. You might have seen me from one of my most popular, I guess, online ventures, and that is the host of the Philippe Matthews Show. I've authored over more than 19 books, and this lecture is based upon my master's thesis. Can metaphysical meditation and affirmation daily heal the trauma of generational poverty in African Americans? So now, that being said, let's get into this understanding of ancestral quantum entanglement and what that actually means. Now, the entanglement is known as, there's many names for it, non-locality, but it's the Akashic Records or the Akashic Chronicles. It's also known as non-locality. Another term for it is the law of conservation. Whenever you hear the term energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be changed, transformed, or transmuted, they're talking about this ancestral realm where energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be conserved. So all memory, all events are conserved in that law of conservation. In our ancestral memory is where we have all of our memories of our ancestral trauma, which is known as the MAAFA. Now, when you're looking at this group coming out of the caves, that was in the caves for over 100,300 years, which is 44,123 generations, you have to understand that this group devolved as opposed to evolved. So when the Africans got caught in the ice over that 100,000 years of breeding and intergenerational devolvement, freezing of the pineal gland, freezing of certain functions to be able to have access to higher power and to their spirit. When that happened and the ice melted and they came out, we tried to reconstitute this group that was, if you will, betrayed by nature, because nature did this to them, not African people. And of course, they ended up turning on us because when you are a devolved species, we never experienced that level of trauma before, but it created what we now call the MAAFA. And the MAAFA is a Kiswahili term for disaster or calamity of a terrible occurrence And this is what we have been going and growing through since they came out of the caves. And this is why I say that we are not sick people. We are sick from being captured, corralled, and controlled by sick people. So let's get into this understanding of quantum entanglement. Now, I believe that there's no such thing as written history as Africans having nightmares. Because we mastered all sciences, we mastered all of the heavens and earth. What was there to have a nightmare about? Nightmares did not occur and start happening until we started becoming traumatized in ways that we had never had a trauma imprint like that before, based upon what the Amu has done to us. And so when we start to look at how does this manifest in our lives and in our relationships, we have to understand quantum physics shows us that two particles, once connected, remain so as entangled partners. So we have a memory, we're entangled with this Amu, infinitum. What we have to do is learn how to recognize the fact that we're entangled, recognize then how that entanglement, that genetic and ancestral memory causes us to do what we do and have certain levels of proclivities that I'm going to get into and Brother Andrew spoke of earlier. So another term for the Akashic records or chronicle or non-locality entanglement, the waters of none. The waters of none is where our purest energy is. It's the ultimate black room. It's where everything manifests and comes from. And as I said, energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed, transcended, or transmuted. And so when we look at this Akashic records or this compendium, of all human events, thoughts, words, emotions, and intent ever to have occurred in the past, present, or future, remind you how powerful that is. There's a workshop that I'm going to be giving the UK, not this month, but the following month, where I'm going to teach you the literal operators of the brain that allowed us to map all of the sciences, to catalog the entire Earth and planet, and to become super sapien, if you will, and how the Dogon developed this process in their brains to be able to do what we have done. This is actual science. We are the best of the best. We're the most amazing. And you think about, why did they come and steal everything and take everything? Well, you only steal what's valuable. You only steal the best of the best. And so let's talk about this concept that the Europeans have developed, known as psychosexual homoerotica and the ancestral memory of the MAAFA. Now, second frequency people practice multiple variations of psychosexual homoeroticism, which is a sexual disorder or problem that is psychological rather than physiological in origin. And this term was developed by Freud. Now, when we look at this ancestral understanding and our ancestral memory of being just hypersexualized, hyper-raped, hyper-sodomized, the level of sexual violation is unfathomable. We can't really put our heads around it, because if we did, we would be just as sick as they are. But our ancestral and genetic memory, via the quantum entanglement of the Akashic records, has stored the trauma of our rape, sexual torture, along with second frequency perversions, fetishes, and fantasies that they inflicted upon our captured, corralled, and controlled bodies. The sexual trauma that was inflicted on our bodies is still evident in second frequency fetishes and fantasies today. All sexual fetishes and perversions are due to second frequency ancestral rape and torture, such as, but not limited to, BDSM or bondage, domination, sadomasochism. All pedophilia comes from our second frequency ancestral rape and torture, because these are not natural things that occurred in Africa. This is not our natural way. These sexual behaviors of domestic terror are not ma'at. Now, when we look at this and get deep into the research, and this is why I ended up putting these some of these slides back in when I saw what Brother Andrew was doing. I'm like, I was going to take it out. I was going to be a little tame, you know. I didn't want everybody know Rev Shock, know this kind of stuff, you know. So according to FetLife, there's over 500 sexual fetishes and fantasies. The site has over 8 million users and prides itself on the social network for the BDSM fetish kinky community. Masochism and sadism are both about the enjoyment of pain. This is what Andrew was talking about earlier. Masochism refers to the enjoyment of experiencing pain, while sadism refers to the enjoyment of inflicting pain on someone else. Now, we see this when we are being killed in the street. There are people who are absolutely loving this. We've seen this in that movie, 50 Shades of Grey. There's a psychosis that comes with this. We think that we might have certain natural proclivities, and we might use a term like, oh, we're just a little kinky and freaky. But you have to ask the question, where did the sensation of that come from? You have to go back into your ancestral memory, and you have to apply to your relationships the same level of Sankofa that you apply to your Black history and Black knowledge. You must apply to your relationship. Why are you attracted to that particular person? Why do you have certain sexual proclivities in a particular way? Where did it come from? Not making you right or wrong, but looking at it from a metaphysical understanding of cause and effect. What was the cause to create these effects that you call and define as your sexual pleasure and proclivity? Now, previous research suggests that women's early sexual victimization experiences may influence their parenting behaviors and increase the vulnerability of their children to being sexually victimized as well. So victimized people get victimized. And so this becomes genetic as this rape continues to occur and has continued to occur in our society. In her seminal work, Medical Apartheid, Dr. Harriet Washington explained that it was often considered a rite of passage for a young master's white son to have sex with one of the African female house slaves. You have to understand, like, this is something that and we're going to go into this history of how this came to be, but we have to understand what they did to us, what they did to our goddesses, subsequently what they did to us. Now, looking at Sarah Bartman, who was known as Hot Knot Venus and recently labeled the original video vixen. She was an African slave whose body was put on display, as she was supposedly a paradoxical freak of race and sexuality, both alluring and primitive, the very embodiment of desire and the importance of conquering the instincts. Bartman's body, curvy and voluptuous, was seen as animalistic and hypersexual. This is the sickness of the Amu family. This is how they see us. When white men were so sexually fascinated with her body that they raped, beat, mentally abused, and showcased her at freak shows. As a final insult, Bartman's genitals were kept on display in Britain for 160 years, removed from public display in 1974 after her death, and returned to South Africa, the country of her birth, with the rest of her remains in 1994. So now let's get into this understanding of what this European perversion has done to our Black bodies, but has done to Black love. So let's talk about this concept of buck breaking. I talked about this before, I think, when I was on the platform, but we're going to go in a little deeper. And this is the term where the motherfucker comes from. It comes from buck breaking. The Black motherfucker comes from the practice of buck breaking, where white second frequency scum would blindfold their Black male steed and force him to have sex and breed with his own mother or sister or someone within that particular breed. Hence the term motherfucker or Black motherfucker or Black ass motherfucker. This is a sickness. These are not words, terms ever used in Africa. When you look at the etymology of all of this, this comes directly from the sick European. This is not African at all. On several occasions, enslaved men with families were forced to have sex with each other in front of their family, or were raped in front of their sons. Many enslaved men who had gone through the process of buck breaking killed themselves afterwards or ran away and never returned. For the white supremacists, buck breaking either on ships or on plantations was a way of utterly embarrassing the men and showing dominance. Now, think about the psychological fallout of that. Think about the genetic memory of that. Think about the historical drip of that being passed on generation to generation with that new encoded epigenetic tag of being raped and sodomized in front of your family and your children. Imagine the sickness that is within that's being installed. We're not sick people, we're sick from being around and captured by these sick people. A strapping Negro slave who was defiant, surly, and may stir up trouble, was beaten with a whip till bloody in front of his entire slave congregation. The slave owner, deathly afraid of an uprising, would cut down a tree and with the help of the overseer would then pummel the deviant buck into submission. Once the slave was worn down, the white master and had the other Negro slaves force him over the tree stump where his breeches would be removed and he laid fully exposed and ripe for the taking. This is the sickness that that is genetically encoded in us. And some of us have certain proclivities where we think this is called kinky or role playing. No, you are living the ancestral memory of your rape, of your mother's rape, your grandmother's rape, your grandfather's rape, your children, your sons, your daughters. That's what you are. That's one of the reasons why you might have this proclivity for perversion. The master drunk on bloodlust would explain to all strong Black men, if they do not follow strict orders and comply with the whims of the overseer and the master, this too would be their fate. He removed his own clothing and proceeded to savagely sodomize the buck in front of his wife, which is the Black king, Black African king, family and friends and children. He then invited his associates from other plantations to join in what they call the nigger festivities. So in order for the plan to take effect, he would require the buck's male child to watch front row and center so he can witness his father's sexual demise and humiliation. Buck breaking was the slave master's very effective tool to keep all young Black slaves from ever being defiant and taking revenge. It's also frighten the mothers and wives from ever giving consent to an uprising. Buck breaking was so successful that it was made into a sex farm where white men could travel from plantation to plantation, feeding their sadistic homosexual needs. Family, ladies, hoes, thugs, and we're not thugs and thoughts, baby mamas, baby daddies. We have been made to be that. That has been forced upon us. That is not your identity. That is not who you are. You might act like that. You might try to self-identify as such, but that is a lie. You're living an ancestral memory of yourself. You're not living the true African-centered self. Dr. Naim Akbar says this: the slavery that feeds on the mind, invading the soul of man, destroying his loyalties to himself and establishing allegiance to forces which destroy him, is an even worse form of capture. The influences that permit an illusion of freedom, liberation, and self-determination, while tenaciously holding one's mind in subjugation, is the folly of only the sadistic. So now, where did this come from, fam? So there's a term known as anti-miscegenation. It's the invention of white people, white privilege, and white fragility. But it's also the creation of white male patriarchy, which is what many of us as Black men are under. But when you don't know your African history, you start acting like European white men. And that doesn't work with the sisters, if you have noticed, brothers. But this is one of the things that happens to us, is that we have an arrested development. And so anti-miscegenation laws, or miscegenation, are laws that enforce racial segregation at the level of marriage and intimate relationships by criminalizing interracial marriage, and sometimes also sex between members of different races. Now, as I've mentioned many times on this program, there were a cluster of anti-miscegenation law, but there were 3 laws that brought us to the conversation we're having today, and that is a person of African descent could no longer vote or run for office. A person of African descent could not own guns or gunpowder. So now the black man, the African man, is being taken out of a position of power, out of the position of being a breadwinner. And as a result, we became boys at that point. And we're going to go into the history of that and what that really means, and how we have been emasculated from this invention of whiteness and white superiority, which is a false racial construct. And then lastly, the most diabolical of those anti-miscegenation laws is a person of African descent could not take any legal action against this new false racial construct of humanity called white. What I want you to do, as I'm walking you through this history, I want you to just think of the historical drip. Look at how many generations we are, and we're still dealing with these anti-miscegenation laws, whereby we're able to have guns and gunpowder, but at what cost? It's the cost of our lives. Looking at not being able to take legal action against this new designation of humanity called white. Look at what happens when they gun us down and kill us, and we're not able to, they're completely able to get off. So let's talk about this concept called white male patriarchy, and what does it mean? Well, it's developed in England as the British Empire grew, expanding its colonial exploitation around the world. A rational explanation was required to explain how a small number of men deserved to control this enormous and growing wealth. With Darwin's theory of evolution, survival of the fittest, Galton's studies of genius, rich and successful men were related to each other, and Spencer's insight that natural selection in human species was nature's way of getting rid of bad stock and preserving the best, the theory began to take shape. So everything that we have been looking at in terms of this, what does it mean to be a man? We're looking at it from white male patriarchy, white male perspective, and that is not who we are, because it's perverted. So our DNA is constantly being damaged by environmental factors like radiation and chemicals, but as well as by errors that occur during replication. Now think about that, during replication. So every time there's a new birth, what are we birthing? What are the ancestral memories? What are the epigenetic tags that we are bringing, that we're giving to our offspring, and that they're bringing into existence as they begin to grow up and have their relationship experience, their Black love experience? What are the genetic markers that are in them that may be diametrically opposed to them succeeding in relationship in life? If you keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect something different to occur, it's because you're looping on an ancestral memory, which is why you're not able to attract the person of your dreams, or you have so much friction with the person of your in your life that you have. And so we have to understand nothing's wrong with that person, nothing's wrong with you. Something happened to that person that you're in relationship with, or something happened to you. When you begin to do that and move into that perspective, now you are in truly healing the relationship. Because here's what trauma does, fam. Trauma takes over the personality, and you think it's you. You think it's you. This is just the way that you are. So this understanding of arrested development and white male patriarchy, some of us look grown up, but aren't. We walk around with suits and briefcases and cars, car keys and annuities, but inside we are 5, 10, 12, 16. We sit in boardrooms, travel the world, even write books, but we are kids still playing dress up and playing house. This is what white male patriarchy has done to us. So this is what we call making of the African man-child. You asked the question, some of the sisters I know, why are Black men so immature? Why are we so petty? You know, why are we so untrustworthy? All of these things that have been put upon us because of what has happened to us. That when we were no longer allowed to have guns and gunpowder, when we were no longer able to participate and vote, when we were no longer able to sue or take any type of legal action against this new designation of false humanity called white, the African man became a boy. The African male became a boy. And we have been fighting that white male patriarchy epigenetics and genetic memory ever since. So due to the impact from the creation of second frequency white people, the first frequency African and African American male has been subjected to that what is known as being the man-child. Now, the Urban Dictionary says it's ultimately someone who was whiny, petty, trying to pass the blame on their own underdeveloped judgment, not stepping up to the plate. These are things that we all know, and we have either as brothers seen it in ourselves or seen it in the men in our lives. So we understand that this is a concept, but we don't know where it came from and how it manifested. That's why we're having this conversation today. Now, Dr. Tommy J. Curry, in his book, The Man Not, there's a section in there where there's this false anthropology of oppression known as recapitulation theory, which claimed that evolved races pass through the stages of primitivism as they mature from childhood to adulthood. Ontology prevented the primitive races from possessing the qualities of the civilized race. Within this account, a psychologically mature adult Black male would be thought of as the moral and intellectual equivalent of a white child. You see, they're developing now this false science, doing what they call the Enlightenment years. They're developing this false social Darwinism, trying to make the argument that the Black African brain, mind, self-concept is uncivil and unworthy. So when we talk about this concept even further in the 19th century, as it relates to the white race, the Negro was feminine, according to Franz Pruner Bay, and suggested that the Black man is to white man what woman is to man in general. So you began to see where this man-child concept comes from, being used as a steed to populate the slave breed, and not have any emotion toward the child that you're bringing into the world, because you're not even allowed to see that. You just see your mother, your sister, your cousin, or whoever your, you know, or even, I guess in some cases, your daughter. And then you continue to do this behavior. This goes on for years and years and years. And then we look and say, well, how is it that Black men can have all of these baby mamas and have all these children, but they don't take care of them? Well, you have to go back to come forward. You got to look at the Sankofa and say, when did the Black man become a Black boy? And when did he devolve as a result of being captured, corralled, and controlled by children of the ice? So the grown-up Negro partakes, as regards his intellectual faculties, of the nature of the female child and the senile white. He manifests a propensity for pleasure, music, dancing, physical enjoyments, and conversation, while his inconstancy of impressions and all of the feelings are those of a child. And these are the two white effers that are looking at this false anthropology, this social Darwinism, and relegating us to children, relegating us to a level of arrested development where we never grow up, we just get bigger. So this was where the concept of the man-child was produced in a movie by John Singleton, who was very aware and woke at the time. The movie revolves around Jody, a young, unemployed, selfish, immature Black man who won't leave the nest of his mama's home, even though he has a son and a daughter by two different women. Jody is a mama's boy. Now let's talk about this, because what I really enjoyed about this movie by John Singleton, Baby Boy, was that he opened the movie up with quoting Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. It goes on to say, a lady named Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, she has a theory about the Black man in America. She says that because of the system of racism, he's been made to think of himself as a baby, a not yet fully formed being who hasn't realized his full potential. To support her claim, she offers the following. First off, what does a Black man call his woman? Mama. Second, what does a Black man call his closest acquaintances? His boys. And finally, what does a Black man call his place of residence? A crib. So you began to see that, yes, we are fully grown, but are we fully evolved? Because we have been under white male patriarchy. And what we're doing is coming into when we are interfacing with brothers like Andrew Muhammad, Lady Adele, my show, Dr. Susan Tata, Pan-African TV, all of our great scholars. What we're really doing is we're becoming African men and African women in many ways for the first time, because everything that we've thought about has become from the epigenetics, our ancestral memory of trauma from the Amu. According to Dr. Jerome E. Fox, the trauma bond between first frequency Africans and African Americans and second frequency oppressors has created a cultural dilemma in today's Black youth and adults that he outlines in his book, Addicted to White, whereby he says it is worth underscoring that oppression not only dehumanizes its victims, but also infantiles them with a childlike dependence upon white oppressors. It's not surprising to see popularized among Black people a structure of teenagers and adults mumbling and mispronouncing like toddlers with limited vocabularies. When conversating and rapping or acting out when home alone in their cribs and on the streets of their hoods, or gaining street cred while on time out in actual crib-like structures behind bars. This is hitting you between the eyes, family, because again, nothing's wrong with us. This is what happened to us. There's a reason why Black men and Black women act the way that we act. This is not something where we wake up and say, hey, guess what I want to do? I want to be cray-cray today. No, it's not a goal. Something happened to you. And it happens over time. You came here with certain proclivities, certain whiteness that was inside of you because of the rape and the torture and what we have gone through. And this is what Brother Andrew was talking about. Dr. Welsing talks about stop name calling one another, stop cursing at one another, stop squabbling, stop gossiping, snitching, being discourteous and disrespectful toward one another, stop robbing one another, stop stealing, stop fighting, stop killing, stop using and selling drugs to one another, stop throwing trash and dirt on the streets and places where Black people live and work. Yeah, all things that make sense and easier said than done. But until you see what happened to you and you begin to see yourself in the data that you're not crazy, you're not a hoe, you're not a bitch, you're not a thug, you're not a thought, you're not a baby mama or baby daddy, this was done to you. This was done to you. Now that can be extremely liberating for you. So let's close this out as we finish this up with the understanding of epigenetics and passing on the pain, because that's really what we've been doing. We've been passing on our pain to generation to generation, because we didn't know we had epigenetic tags until Dr. Joy DeGruy came out with it, Dr. Edwin Nichols, Dr. Luann Brizendine, and we started talking about it on my show. So Dr. Bianca Jones, Marlin, she says all the cells in the body have what we call epigenetic regulation, which means the cells know what they should or shouldn't be. But certain experiences, the environment, which is the axiology that Dr. Edward Nichols talks about, can change what genes are expressed and not expressed. Very, very powerful. So DNA actually is just the recipe, but it doesn't make the cake. Markers around the DNA say you can't touch this piece, so our genes don't change, but the things around our genes that make our genes work or not can change to adapt to the environment. Very, very powerful, because what that means is that we can create new epigenetic tags to move ourselves up and out. In other words, this is not permanent. The situation that you're currently in, that we're currently in as a people, that's not permanent. We can make a change because we are able to alter our environment and alter our DNA. But we have to know first what happened to us, which is, nothing. We didn't do it. We didn't do this to ourselves. This was done to us. So she used this experiment where she says, because male mice are constantly creating sperm, this means that the experience is not just living in the sperm that's present, but somehow it's living somewhere in the body and informing the sperm to make sure that all subsequent generations are getting this message. This is how this genetic code is passed on through our ancestral memories. So males, without ever meeting their offspring. Watch this. Men, without ever meeting their offspring, just having their sperm pass on to the second generation, those offspring have altered brains because of the experience that their father went through. Do you see that? So yes, we can pass on all of this great knowledge, but we got to also look at what is the crap that we've passed on. What did we come here with? What are our proclivities and processes that we are, how many baby daddies or baby mamas do we have? Why do we have that? Why do we have certain proclivities to go to a strip club versus go to an art gallery or something of sort? Think about it. It's not a matter of making someone right or wrong. It's understanding the power of Black love had to be destroyed. And this is how it was done, fam. So you did not have a sense of your king. You didn't have a sense of your queen. You didn't have a sense of the power of your community. And so the system's biggest fears are Black intelligence, Black empowerment, Black progression, Black self-esteem, Black economic independence, and strong Black masculinity and Black love. Nothing is wrong with us, family. Something happened to us. So that being said, if you like, we do live works on Patreon. If you want to get a PowerPoint presentation from this, you can become a Patreon member and join there. And I'll be teaching some, taking this information into a deeper level. Of course, you can go and download it streaming worldwide on all of the platforms. So you can go and check out Metaphysical Morpheus. You can enroll in our free firstfrequencyofoneness.com affinity e-course, so you can learn everything you need to know about what first frequency is. And also, Brother Andrew has a special page called hiddentruthdownloads.com, where you can go and there are digital assets that I think would be very helpful for you as you move forward. So that being said, Baba, I'm going to close this out and say, practice the law of 7 and invoke this prosperity affirmation 7 times daily, 7 days a week. I am one with first frequency. I am one with the first thought idea. I am one with the firstborn people. I am one with the only one. Ashe, and so it is. Hotep community.
Boy, Reverend. Are you still there, bro?
Yeah, I'm still here, brother.
My God, brother. I'm just getting tuned into it even more, brother. I can't believe you left us like that, man. You had us. Wow.
I had to put it in there. I had to put some stuff back in there after you came out with that heat, man. I said, wait a minute now. I thought, I didn't know. I thought it was a family show. I didn't know if it was a late night, I didn't know how late I could go, So
you didn't hold back, brother, but you can never hold back, bro. You dropped it.
It's the thing, brother. Everything that has happened to us,
yes.
we can trace back to what nothing is wrong with us.
Yes, nothing.
Nothing is wrong with us. So if we're acting up and acting out in a maladaptive way, we've got to trace that trauma back to where it began. Now, it could be a trauma that just happened when we came here, or it could be genetic trauma that is passed on, or it could be in the ancestral realm, right? But we've got three levels of trauma. We got three realms of trauma where trauma relies and belies that are in our Black bodies. And so what triggers those traumas? Now, here's the interesting thing about relationships and Black love. Well, yep. Black love, when you meet someone, it's to relieve each other of their temporarily of your trauma.
Come on, brother.
Right? So it feels great. You're dating, you're having conversations, you're talking on the phone for hours and just staring each other eyes. All of that is relieving trauma. So you're relieving trauma, so you're coming together, but it's two trauma histories really clashing together because you haven't had your first disagreement yet. You're still in the infatuation stage where you are releasing and relieving each other's trauma when you come together. But you don't know about your ancestral trauma that's embedded in you. You don't know about your genetic trauma that's embedded inside of you. You don't know about the decontextualized trauma that is embedded inside of you from the time of your birth to the time of your death. So when you don't know that, and then you get into relationship to relieve that trauma, and then you start to have a regular life, you go into that first fight, that first disagreement, and you don't know who the hell that person is. It's like, where in the hell did that come from? It's because it's no longer that person. It's no longer Andrew. It's no longer Lady Adele. That's the personality. It's the trauma body now that's showing
up. Brother.
So nothing is wrong with you or her yes. and he. Nothing is wrong with you, but you think she did this to me, he did this to me, he said this, she said that. That is the trauma body trying to defend itself and protect itself, because trauma is always trying to escape the body. So it blows through whoever is closest to you.
Brother, when it comes to trauma, there is no one I know that can break it down like you, God. I mean, just reading some of the comments, brothers and sisters. Brother, it's just fire in the house. They're saying, Sister Sharon Clark says, thank you so much. 11111. I am one. Sister Sophia Williams says, sorry, thank you, Reverend. You are great. But Noel Stevens said, brother, stop. Oh, can you repeat the affirmation slowly?
Sure. I am one with first frequency. I am one with the first thought idea. I am one with the firstborn people. I am one with the only one.
Fine.
Ashe.
Ashe, brother. Sister Vanessa says, superb. The truth does hurt. However, it shall free us. Beautiful. Absolutely. Cynthia says, Reverend, every Black person needs to hear this. Every Black person, Cynthia says. Vanika, one of the founders of Hidden Science, says, absolutely amazing. My goodness. Poetic Angel, one of our queens on the spoken word, says, speak, my king. And she just throws up her ones to you, beloved. Faye Hamilton said, he gave me.
How do I put y'all up on my dresser in the morning when I can just hear all of this? Y'all just make me feel great over there on the other side of the pond.
Brother, I can't keep reading, brother. I mean, please, if you have time, have a look. But brother, I'm telling you now, brother, you are so highly respected here in the UK. And we know this is not just a UK audience. We've got people from all over the world. But I can tell you now, brother, you've laid down a very good bed in the UK. We can't wait for us to be able to show you the love that we have for you, King.
Thank you,
it's blessing, because this is Black love. This is Black love. And what we're doing now is transatlantic love right now. Brothers and sisters, one more time, brothers and sisters, throw up your ones, Put down that is smelly, whatever you want to put down, you're smelly. Some of you said that your socks are clean. I don't care. Put that how clean your socks are. Brothers and sisters, this is Reverend Shock, the keynote speaker. Don't go yet. We've still got 1 or 2 more things tonight. But let the Reverend know how much you've loved him. Let them know that you've met him in the love clinic. And you've made love for 45
I
minutes.
love you back, family.
Yeah? You've been making love for the last 45 minutes, the love of self, the love of who you are, the love of your culture. You're now finding out more about your traumatic, our traumatic state of mind.
Yes.
And understand it, because that is the first stage of healing. We're going to return to first frequency. That's what we want to do. Return back to our first frequency, brothers and sisters. The blackness, the triple blackness in the universe, brothers and sisters.